상편, 중편, 하편
This book is the mid part of the three different parts of this teaching. This book is mid part of the three different levels of teaching. You shouldn't say three different types, but there are actually three different teachings for this. When we talk about the passing of Buddhist doctrine, if you look through the Buddhist history, then unless and until all this Buddhist doctrine is being passed down properly through teachers, sometimes they only take out the major part and somewhat the Buddhist doctrines or the Buddhist teachings are passed down improperly.
자기 나름대로 해석을 해버려가지고 이단이 종단이 생겨버려. 그래서 아주 극히 한 부분만 뽑아가지고 뭐가 된 것처럼 그렇게 이제 얘기를 자꾸.
It's also extremely important what text or what sutra you have used for this learning, and also it's important from which teacher and also with what commentary you have been taught. In Tibet, through Nalanda University, Buddhist doctrine has been passed down properly from the time of Buddha, and that's also very important.
티베트나 이쪽은 옛날에 부처님 때로부터 지금까지 나란타 대학으로 해서 이렇게 지금까지
also the Buddhist doctrine of Kamlashila is extremely rare. So Dalai Lama also wanted to learn through this Buddhist doctrine, but he was not able to do so. It was not well known in the mid part and also in the southwest part of Tibet. These four major monasteries, Serakhanden, Depu, these major monasteries with a lot of monks, this Buddhist doctrine was not being passed on well. I think it's because the three volumes of Buddhist doctrine was not being passed down properly or well because it was very remote area. In Kham, Kanulama Tenzin Gyaltsen passed down this doctrine.
긴누라마 덴진 갈제는 티벳의 캄 지방에서 이 분맥을 이었다고. 긴누라마 덴진 갈젠이라는 이 스님께서 요 본맥은 주로 이제 지금 캄 지방에서 티베트의 우리 같으면 이제 호남 지역처럼 곡창지대입니다.
Pass it down.
캄 지역에서 이제 이 본맥이 이어져 내려왔었는데 이게 겐두라마께서 이제 덴진 갈첸 이 어른이 이었는데.
I met Sekong Rinpoche, the reincarnated Sekong Rinpoche, for 17 times. He was very short. I'm very sorry to say, for a respectable person, to a respectable monk, he was really short, maybe about only 150 centimeters height. I met him when he was 17. But when I was talking to him, then I was surprised how serious and how prudent he was when he was talking to me. If in Korea, most of those 17-year-old students would be very bored and they would feel very sleepy while talking to me. But when he was talking to me for 4 hours, I was also very surprised because he was also talking to me in depth about the international political situations too.
그렇지도 않고 나하고 한 8시간 앉아서 얘기를 했는데
I don't think this Buddhist doctrine was passed down by this reincarnate Sekong Rinpoche, but I believe it's a previous reincarnation. At the time, I wanted to be taught personally, but I couldn't because our circumstances didn't allow.
이분 말고 그 전때 셀콩 이분인 것 같아요.
I think that's because it was a time when
개인적으로
it was time of
전승받고
chaos.
싶었지만 받을 수가 있는 상황이 아니었습니다.
Because the situation wasn't proper, although it was not, and also since it is not very long Abhidharma, I thought it would be fine if I also learn this later.
그렇게 길지 않은
This is not Sutta, this is Abhidhamma.
셀콩 리포체 이게 법을 전설을 받고 싶은데
Since it is not long, I thought it would be fine if I listen to it later in a short time. That I think that lead to they didn't allow the chance.
사실은 그냥 뒤에 간단하게 한번 들었으면 되겠다 이렇게 했다 그냥 놓쳐버렸단 말이야. 그러니까 이것도
There are so many good and precious Abhidhammas in Tibet,
좀 있고 좀
and
그러면
sometimes I want to invite those professors or those humble men, but even if I try to do that,
그래서
there are too many obstacles to do so.
전공 깊은 분들을 한 분씩 초청해서 이렇게
It's because they do not have a deep wish to study. But when Tibetan monks come here, they think of it as an event. So I feel very sorry about it, and I feel very bad about it. It would be nice if you try to think about it in a way that it's an opportunity for you to study. But depending on the situation, just like flowers flow by, I feel the roots are not very deep. But I hope you are able to bring out the sincere hearts for the study. And also, I hope you will listen to these teachings by inviting these monks. But I feel we are not lucky. There are so many things I feel we are not lucky. Those with a lot of money, they think that's everything. Everything of life, and they try to earn more money. But in previous time, when kings, since they have a lot of money, some good kings spend his money in order to have Buddhist teaching for the commons, like during the time of Shilla, the lotus teaching. Even the ministers of the time and also merchants who had a lot of money, they donated money in order to have this teaching. But nowadays, a lot of people who has money, when I talk about money, they act as if they have a heart attack. In this world, people do not desire for real virtue, but they only desire for virtue that is not true, and they die eventually. And after our death,
바람 불고 훅 날아가 버릴 그림자 같은 복만 웅크지고 앉아서 나중에 험한 꼴을 당하면 무슨 풍이 왔느니.
And after that, it's difficult to be reborn as a human. It's almost like, as the order said, it's almost like finding a needle in the middle of Pacific Ocean. When we have a human body, we are filled with greed, and sometimes I do not know what to say because our behavior as a human is not proper.
근데 사람은 받았을 때 짐승처럼 욕심을 부리다가 그냥 손 펴고 날아가 버리는 모습을 보면 정말 기가 막혀. 기가 막혀서 말이 안 나와. 누가 그러더라? 기가 막히고 코가 막히고 그런다.
So although we are not totally aware of the Buddhist teachings or Buddhist sayings, if we try to stay conscious, then we do not regret, and when once we reach to a certain point, then it gets passed down to the next life. But if we do not make, or if we do not attain virtue, then times like this, when we are not able to study because we have to make money for the living, they cause all the disabilities. Like it causes disability even when you drink, and also when we do gambling, and also we smoke, and also nowadays we also know so many false things, and so we become falsely intelligent, and throughout the day we sit and we only talk about those things that cause quarrel. It's throughout Korea, but I think also in Jeollanam-do province, especially in Jeollanam-do province, a lot of people try to look for ways for quarrel.
나는 이제 우리나라 전체가 다 상당히 그런 부분이 있지만 특히 전라도에서는 그 심성들이 뭐 어쩌면 그냥
When you try to have a conversation, then a lot of people start off with a sense of quarrel, and all they can think of is what should I say in order to stop them from speaking. If you have that sort of mind, then you will not also have a good virtue. I think it's evident throughout Korea.
그런 심성 바탕에서는 기억도 잘 안 들어와. 자꾸 가난해진단 말이야. 그런 건 조심을 다 해야 돼. 심성들이 잘 가라앉고 편안해져야 된단 말이야. 우리나라 전반이 다 그런.
Instead, I was studying Kalachakra Tantra, written by Button Rinchen Drug.
대신에 붓돈 린첸두의 갈라차크라에 대한 주석 등 여러 가지 갈라차크라에 관련된 내용들을 집중적으로 공부하고 있었습니다. 이 갈라차크라는 시륜이라 그러는데 우리 같으면 옛날에 이제 이게
This was almost like contribution of the teaching. It's just like me coming here to Yasu and also try to pass down these teachings. It's easy for you to think that you are making virtues by attending this kind of teaching, but also you help others and do volunteer work, and that provides the basis for study. It's almost like producing rice for food. Next time you study, if you are unlucky, then you might have to run to earn money, and that way you will not have time to study, and you won't be able to study, and later you'll be falling into hell, and you won't be able to study furthermore, and you will eventually lose the body of a human. That kind of thing should not happen. A lot of people, they can contribute. It's not something that they have to sell their land or house in order to contribute. But it's not like we use your money in a forced way. It's not like I buy a fancy car or have a huge saving account. If in that case, to those months, you should not contribute. But if the money is being spent totally for all other commons or also for the better of the other humans, then you should contribute.
10억, 20억 모아놓고 있고 그렇게 하면 주지 말라고.
Then
그렇게 하면
only
더 업을 짓는 거니까.
everyone who live with you will also gain virtue, and also you will gain virtue from this act.
스님들이 최소한의 그 돈을 가지고 쓴다 그러면 그거는
So Kala Chakra is also a distribution of teaching.
그더 여러분과 더불어서 같이 사는 사람들도 다 복이 되고 그렇게 한단 말이야.
It's just like the lotus teaching and also the teaching that we usually have during the on the birthday of Buddha.
아까 얘기한 고려 때
It's a celebration, and also a lot of very humble teachers
그다음에 이제 연등회
attend,
같은 이런
and
것들은 그 법회 자체가 우리가 이름만 이렇게 지금 남아 있지만도 법회 자체가 지금 국가적인
a lot of
행사고
you, even
그게
for the Tuesday teaching,
아주 뛰어난 그 스승들이 나오셔가지고 일주일이고 열흘이고 다 온 사람 거지들까지
when we try to arrange a meeting of this teaching on Tuesday, you do not try to invite a lot of other people or try to contribute for the lunch and what menu should you arrange in order to make more people come. You do not think of those. But during those time, even in Chile, even though starting from the beggars and even to the king, everyone attended the meeting. During those time where the caste was being placed, the king was almost like a god. He was also giving out food to the beggars. And they sat at the same place regardless of your rank, and they dined together. And also the word that we call equal dining comes from here. They not only gave clothes to the monks, but they also gave clothes to the beggars. So Kala Chakra, which also means they're rolling the wheel of the teaching. Parents, they try to arrange this teaching, and this has become a standard way also. During this time, he was not able to listen to this teaching because he was concentrating on Kala Chakra. Here, Dalai Lama is talking about how he attained to listen to this teaching. Like I said last time, it is improper to read and understand and comprehend the text on your own. You should listen to teacher, and you should make sure that unnecessary or wrong teachings are not being done. Later, I heard the death of Sekong Rinpoche was in Swiss, and the Ling Rinpoche was living close by, was very old. Ling Rinpoche is now in Daegu, and I also went there for a couple of times. It would be nice if he was able to listen from Ling Rinpoche, but Ling Rinpoche was very old. Then only I had to pay a huge price for not listening to these stages of practice. Later, each time I met a lot of teachers and also geshis who had this doctrine being passed down. I asked them a lot of questions. Once in Bodh Gaya,
한 번은 보드가야에서
Sakya, this Sakya is one of the
이게 이제
newest newest
그 이제 닉마, 샤카, 뭐 갤룩 이렇게
sect
예파가
in
있는데
Tibet.
이렇게 이거는
I met Sangye Tenzin, who was the head of the Sakya.
만들어진 파야. 신파에 속하고 계조는 누구냐면
He said he had this teaching from an old teacher who came to Lhasa from Kham for his pilgrimage.
그는 이 수행차제에 대한 가르침을 라사에서 성지순례를 하기 위해 캄에서 오신 나이든 스승께 받았다. 그러니까 결국 캄에서 이 법이
So
전수받았다.
you should not just overestimate that just reading a text is fine. You should make sure that you listen to proper teacher. After being taught all the lessons, I double checked that it was the teaching that I received was from Tenu Lama Tenzin Gyatse. Also the tradition being passed down from Kham.
로부터 캄 지방에서 이어진 전통이라는 것을 하게 됐습니다. 이게 이제 아까 이제 맨 앞에 얘기할 때 여기에 땡진 깔첸
The Lama, since he wanted to listen to these stages of practice, but he wasn't able to do so. So he was trying to listen a lot of time from all the monks who attended Kalachakra.
듣고 싶어서 여러 수소문을 하는데 거기에 이제
And when he met this head of the Sakya sect, he was able to listen to it. In Tibet, this tradition is very important.
했는데 이분이 이제 라사에 갔을 때 캄 지방에서 오신 어떤 노선임으로부터 이제
After listening to his teaching, I eventually came to know that this teaching was also from Kanu Lama Tenzin Gyatse from Tibet. So I decided it was better for me. It is better for me to listen to this teaching before it is too late. I think this tradition is an extremely good tradition.
달라이라마께서 이제 갈라차크라를 하시면서 이제 이 법을 전수받다 이제
Dalai Lama thinks we're very precious of listening to teachings of our teachers.
내가 볼 때는 아주 스승에게 법을 갖다
Before, each time when I try to start a new sutra, I always ask for advice from Ling Rinpoche. However, Ling Rinpoche was already dead too.
전에는 내가 새로운 경전이나 논전을 시작되면 언제나
So even before starting to study, he asked advice from teachers. We do not have this in Korea, but when you go and listen something from somewhere,
그러니까 이제 이게 잘 들어보셔.
you should go and ask what you are listening and what you are and from whom you are learning. You should not just listen to everything. Then you get confused since you do not have an ability to distinguish the wrong and right. So you should not do that.
스승에게 먼저 물어보고 해야 돼. 지멋대로 보지 말고. 지멋대로 가서 듣고 앉았고
So when you start a book, you should bring the book and ask, what do you think about starting this book?
막 헷갈리게 돼 있어. 그렇게 제발 하지 말아야 돼.
Even when you watch this Buddhist television,
어느 책을 한 권 보더라도 책을 갖고 와서 이런 책을 보면 어떻겠습니까? 또
I listened to this teaching broadcasted on Buddhist TV in order to explain that to you, or in order to tell you what I think about them. If they have learned properly, or if he's saying something improper, I listen deliberately.
왜냐면 뭐 많이 볼 것도 없이 그 사람 한 번 하는 것만 들으면 그 틀린 얘기인지 맞는 얘기인지는 아니까. 정상적으로 배운 사람인지 안 배운 사람인지 아주 헛소리 하는 사람인지 아닌지는 아니까. 무슨 뜻이요?
Sit there and listen, baby. It's okay. If you're able to say something, come and say, I want to rest.
아가. 거기 앉았어? 괜찮아? 네가 슬퍼 흘러가는 건 네가 와서 해. 난 신난다.
So, a holy man, even someone like Dalai Lama, he also double checked from his teacher if he can study this book.
그 달라이라마 같은 이런 그 대승자.
But since it was after the death of Rinpoche, he couldn't ask him.
스승에게 꼭 이거는 보면 되겠습니까? 이거는 그러면 이제 이를테면 이 경을 좀 누구한테 들으면 되겠습니까? 하고 물어서 했는데.
At times when I ask you what have you studied or what have you listened, then you often tell me that you read the book of Park Jang-su님, the title I was standing or I was talking. No, this kind of books does not help you to study. Like it's almost like when you have a stomach ache, then you should go to the hospital and eat the right medicine. But it's almost like you're just sitting. It's almost like you're just eating, you're just putting salt. Also, when it's very cold, it's almost like just peeing out in the field when it's very cold. You feel it will get warmer, but even the urine will freeze and make it colder. This kind of water that we have, those are agony, but there is nothing written about how to get rid of agony, but they talk about the flowers blossoming. But if you tell me that you read this kind of book and tell me that it's easy and it's easier to learn, it's because that fits your deed or your virtue. That means your virtue is not very, very good. You read books about stock market, and that's only because you want to read that. It will not help you to get rid of acne. If you read this kind of book for 10 or 20 times, then you will have this feeling that you want to study. If you want to study furthermore, then they will open the door for you to have a clear consciousness. The older you get, if you do not study, then you also start losing your consciousness, and also with age, you do not grow wiser. And since you also try to use your head for too many times, you will also lose stability of your mind. Even wheels, if they turn around for too many times, then they are worn out. Because you think too much, you also suffer from this depression. Those with healthy minds should be able to stay in one place even for a short time, or at least for a short time. If your thoughts start moving for too often, then it also causes a lot of headache. they have different ideas in the morning, in the afternoon, and also in the evening. They smile, they cry. How can you live like that? We call those people mentally ill.
왜냐면 무슨 아침에 볼 때 생각 다르고 밥 먹고 나서 생각 다르고 화장실 갔다 와서 생각 다르고 울었다 웃었다가 성질 냈다 그래서 하면 그거 어떻게 살아?
It was very fortunate and very happy event. I was able to get out from guilty and also the feeling of this desperation that I had buried down in my heart for a long time.
긴 세월을 가슴에 묻어두었던 분명의 단절에 대한 안타까움과 양심의 가치에서 저절로 벗어날 수 있게 되었습니다. 이게 티베트 불교의
The thing
전성이기
is, Dalai
때문에
Lama should be able to have teaching of all texts of Tibet. Sange Tenzi is above 80 now. He is also very respected and also very honorable teacher of Sakya sect. It seems like there is no footnote or commentary for these stages of practice. I haven't seen it myself. It seems like I am the first one making this commentary. Tsongkhapa uses a lot of these stages of practice parts in his own books. This Kamlashila is an older person, is a person who was previous to Tsongkhapa. Thus, using these contents properly, I think it's good to make a footnote or commentary or make a reference for the stages of practice.
이 주석서는 없단 말이야. 따라서 그 내용을 적절하게 활용하여 이 수행 자제를 주석하고 보충하는 것이 좋겠다고 생각합니다. 그러니까
So this means Dalai Lama is going to use some of the footnotes used by Tsongkhapa. Kamlashila contributed hugely in spread of Buddhism in Tibet. He set a stable basis for this teaching with a proper thought in his and motivation. Kamlashila tried his best when he was staying in Tibet in order to spread Tibetan, in order to spread Buddhism. One of the great kings of Tibet, Tisong Desen,
불법을 갖다 전하기 위해서 최선을 다해서 해주셨던 분이다. 그러니까 티베트의 위대한 도방 중에 한 분인
from Acharya Chandrakshita and Guru Rinpoche, Guru Rinpoche Padmasambhava, who is also known as Padmasambhava, he invited them to Tibet. These three people, or these three great teachers, contributed hugely in spread of Buddhism in Tibet. Acharya Chandrakshita and also Padmasambhava.
아주 또 이게 그 대선지식이었던 파드마삼바바를 티베트로 초청했습니다. 이게 참 중요한 일들입니다. 중요한 일. 왜냐하면 티베트로 왕이 직접 그냥
Tisong Dechen not just invited any teachers, but he requested India to send Chandrakshita and also Padmasambhava to Tibet.
그 다음에 파드마삼바바 이 두 분을 갖다가 지적을 해서 좀 인도에 요청을 했어요. 요청을 해서
The influence is such that it's almost like some multinational company of Korea being moved to another country. Although that is in matters of finance, but this these three teachers are very spiritual pillars of India. So it's almost so the king could also hesitate because it causes a huge spiritual gap during their absence.
바깥으로 잘 안 내보내려고 여러 가지 요청을 하고 못 나가게 요청을 하고 그랬는데 이 티베트 왕은 이렇게 이제
throughout India, those areas also like Sopema, and also you can find his footprints in all the areas that he went while he was going to Tibet. And also the books written by him are numerous.
바드마사마바께서 이제 수행하셨던 흔적과 집필을 하셨던 흔적들이
These three teachers contributed hugely in spread of Buddhism and also in providing the basis for Tibetan Buddhism. In Korea, we can say during Shilla dynasty, even in this temple called Hingyosa, there is a footprint of three great teachers, and Wonho S님, Venerable Wonho, he did not go abroad. He formed his own ideology on his own, but on one side, but he's a little outsider if we say it's through the teachers being passed down. But if you say Isang, Venerable Isang, then he has a proper passing down of the Buddhist doctrines. So during the one Shilla, there are a few teachers.
보시다시피 이제 법성계라든지 그런 것을 갖다가 써놨는데 법의 전성에 있어서 틀림이 하나도 없는 것이고 그래서 조선 시대 때 그 신라 동임 신라 시대 때
we cannot say that there was someone who came abroad and spread Buddhism and also formed this kind of stability in our country. Most of the time, our people left to overseas in order to study, and they came back.
큰 법의 안배들을 갖다 해놓은 분들은 없어요. 우리나라
So
분들이 가가지고 공부를 와서 이제 했는데 그러니까 힘이
unlike Tibet, we have small but numerous different sects within us. Because Tibet, when they came to Tibet, they spread the Buddhism flourished. But it's difficult to say that we had the same in Korea. So when Wonho spread Buddhism in Korea, it was not as influential. It was not that huge influence to cover throughout Korea. But Tibet at the time. The Buddhism flourished throughout Tibet and also to Taiwan and also Bhutan and also Nepal. So the Buddhism was passed down. The Buddhism was passed down in a huge area.
이쪽 티베트 본토 이쪽에 전부 다 지금 네팔, 부탄, 시킴, 따왕 이쪽으로 전부 다예요.
Including Tantra, the absolute form of Buddhism was able to spread in Tibet with help of those teachers.
밀법을 포함한 완전한 형태의 불교가 이분들의 협력으로 인해서 티벳의 완전한 형태로
Even Tantra has their own script. Buddha has written himself.
밀교는 부처님께서 설법하신 게 또 아니다 이렇게 얘기하는 사람이 좀 그렇지
The
않아요.
script is written in Sanskrit.
밀교 같은 경우도
It's not an edited version, but it was written by Buddha. But there are a lot of books which has extra commentary, which was while being passed down.
범어로 그대로 다 돼 있단 거야. 그래서 이거는 뒤에 편집된 게 아니고 부처님께서 하신 건데 뒤에 이제 조금씩
Padmasambhava
다른
was also
방법들이
able
조금씩
to
포함되어진
pass
것은
down
많이 있을
Tantra,
수
even
있어요.
Tantra in
근데
Tibet.
이제 밀교 같은 경우도 이제 이
Acharya
이런 분들이
Shankarashita,
완벽하게 밀교
he
법도
also saw the
이
possibility
금강성이라 그러죠. 그래서
of
그
error being
티벳에
caused
전수를
while
했다.
the ideology
아짜리아
of
산트랄
Buddhism
식당은
and also
불교가
its
티벳에
commentary
차지하는 동안
being
불교 이론적인
setting down in
해석과
Tibet.
이해에 대한 오류가 생길 가능성을 미리 보았습니다. 그러니까 산트랄 식당 같은
It's quite
이런
interesting, like when you say in China,
이게 티베트에서 불법을
there's
왜곡시킬 가능성이
the
많다.
translation of Kumarajam
그러니까 이제
and
중국 같은
also
경우도
the
참
one
그거 보면
that's
재밌는 게 구마라즈 번역하고요 현장 번역하고 번역이 달라요.
is different. Like Kumarajam is a person from those areas like Pakistan. So he has been he tried his best to bring the Indian Buddhism. But Venerable Hyunjang thought bringing the Indian Buddhism is also important, but he also tried to make them understand or make Chinese understand this Buddhism. When you say 색즉시공 공주기색, this is this and that is that, this is different. The meaning behind this text itself is different. This Kong means empty. This Kongsin is the chance to become empty. The characteristic of itself is empty. So when you talk about this in Panyashimgyang, it's not actually 색즉시공, but it's actually 색즉시공심. So when we wonder what is the difference between them, there's a huge difference. When we say 색즉시공, we are only looking at the emptiness, but when you say 색즉시공승, it means we are talking about the characteristics to become empty. So it actually means when you talk about pine tree, it's not that the pine tree is empty, but we are also looking at the characteristics of the pine tree. If you do not have a proper understanding, then you might think there is no difference. But depending on how you interpret, it's different. This Venerable Hyunjang, he thought it's better to say empty rather than the characteristic of emptiness. That's where the Chinese Buddhism arose because of his translation. But Tibet did not have their own script or letters. So when they came, they translated on their own language. So the Chinese Buddhism is different. To Tibet, Indian Buddhism was being passed down without much change, but with China is different. And throughout the age in China, where they tried to interpret, the meaning itself also changed. What Dalai Lama wants to refer to here is Tibetan Buddhism has been passed down from the time of Buddha through the Nalanda University without any change until today.
달라이라마께서 지금 얘기하고자 하는 의도는 뭐냐면 티베트 불교가 부처님 때로부터 나란타 대학을 통해서 지금 티베트까지 왜곡됨 없이 쭉
So by introducing or inviting Kambasila to Tibet, he also left teachings to prevent those chances.
그래서 제자인
So
까밀라 신라를
Acharya
초청하여
Chandaroshita
그러한 경우에
has
대비한 가르침을
taught
남겼습니다.
Kamlachila
그러니까 이제
to
그
come to
산토락시타의
Tibet
제자가
because
또
no matter how
까밀라
much I
신라랍니다.
try,
그러니까
it seems like they'll be putting vinegar to it. Like it seems like they're going to put vinegar into the
당시
food. So
제자한테 까밀라
please,
신라에게다가
please make sure that it does
요거는
not get
꼬라지를
a
보니까
little
내가 지금
changed.
아무리 가르치나도 요것들이
Isn't it
조금 그
amazing?
식초를 집어넣게 생겼다.
The teacher's
음식에
teacher's vision.
식초를 좀 집어넣게 생겼으니까 까밀라 신라 네가 와서
The Tibetan Buddhism
요게 좀
strengthened from the teacher's
이상하게 안 되게끔
visions.
변질이 안 되게끔 와서 좀 해라. 그래서 이걸 짓게 된 거란 말이야. 참 훌륭하죠, 그죠? 스승의 안목대로 그러니까 티베트 불교가 탄탄해져 버린 거야. 스승들의 그 안목 하나에서 이렇게 탄탄해진 거야.
If you make a wrong interpretation of a single word,
그게 이제 이런 거란 말이야.
if you play this game of passing down the words and ask them to stand back, then if he passes down 3-4 people, then the word itself changes.
우리가 말 이어가기 하잖아요, 그죠? 뒤에서 이제 뒤로 돌아서 있어라 그러고.
Even those games, the words change. But if we do a translation, then there's a higher chance of the words being misinterpreted.
그 변해 가는 과정이 희한하죠, 그죠?
There are so many chances of misinterpretation.
번역을 하는 과정은 그것보다 더 심하게 왜곡될 수가 있어요.
So those scholars who study Sanskrit, they try not to look at Chinese.
이래저래 하다 보면 완전히 다르게 해석될 수 있는 것이 굉장히 많단 말이야. 그래서 이제
So Hyunjung at the time when he was doing the interpretation, he did very well, but it was difficult to convey 80% of the truth of the original script. Okay, to say, are you able to understand your husband well in the house? You eat together, you got married, and you have kids together, but are you able to understand? Are you able to understand? No, right? Do you?
지금 영감님이 이해가 잘 됩니까? 예? 같이 밥 먹고 결혼해가지고 같이 살고 애기 낳고 살아도 이해.
Put her on camera.
정재심은 잘 이해돼요? 어? 안 되지. 보사는 잘 이해돼? 어? 이해해?
You're not able to understand even if you're married and you eat together every day.
이거 카메라
But
잡아놔라.
even more than this, or the huge different ideas and also the cultures,
그러니까 같이 밥 먹고
two different, two diverse, two vast ideas met,
광대하고
but
한 관습과 오랜
strangely,
개념
I think the Chinese culture or Chinese tradition was a little weaker than India. Because normally, just like water, it flows down from the higher area to the lower area. But India formed their tradition into Chinese.
왜 그러냐면 꼭 여기 물 같아가지고 문화나 사상과 철학은 강한 쪽에서 높은 쪽에서 낮은 곳으로 흘러요. 근데
They do not try to go and spread Taoism from China to India because something like Taoism was fully already there in India. Because the contents were already there, they were not able to do it.
도교 같은 거는 꽉 찼으니까 그 안에 인도에 안 했어. 유교도 인도 사람들이 유교 같은 것도 꽉 찼으니까 안에 내용이 꽉 찼어. 다 있어.
The history says that was the reason why Kamlashila was invited to Tibet, and also the reason for Kamlashila to write the stages of practice. So Kamlashila was also invited, but he did not just teach them without any script, but he taught them. But he taught them without proper text. For the benefit of Tibet and also to civilized Tibetan Buddhism,
뒤에 제자들이 또 감라실라 제자들이
civilized Buddhism,
티베트
Kamlashila came to
이어서
Tibet
이제 교수한테서
personally, and
가르쳤다는 말이에요.
these three different volumes, the first, mid, and the later
티베트인들의
volumes,
이익을 위해 그 중에서도 구체인 법을
the
자리 잡게
stages
하기
of
위해서
practice
위대하신
was written in
감라실라께서
Tibetan.
티베트로 몸소 오셔가지고 그렇게 한 것입니다. 그러니까 상편, 중편, 하편의 세
And
부분으로
also,
구성된 이 수행차지는 티벳에서 쓰신 것으로
this
티벳 썼단 말이에요. 쓰신 것으로 중국의 화산
the Chinese representative Mahayana
마하야나 그 스님일 겁니다. 요건 이제 요 뒤에 그 안에 역주 있죠, 주석 있죠, 그죠? 여기서 말하는 중국 화상 스님이라는 것은 7, 8세기경
I became calls for it.
방향을 결정한 논쟁에서
This means the
인도 측 대표로 나선 가빌라 신라에 대한 에게 패한 중국 측 대표 마하야나 마하연이 대성이라는 뜻입니다. 마하연을 의미한다. 이 논쟁은 티벳 최초의 성은인 삼해에서 행해졌기 때문에 삼해에
this is also famous as
논쟁 안에 그 내용이요.
the big debate between them in the previous in the very first Tibetan monastery Samye. So it seems like they have a big debate on the interpretation of the wrong Buddhism, and Kamlashila's debate won, and also that caused a stable. They provided the proper direction for the Tibet Buddhism.
또 까밀라 신라가 중심이 된 인도 불교가 들어갔어. 근데 이제 재밌는 논쟁이 이제 벌어진 거예요. 왕은 어땠냐면 왕은 나는 법을 공부를 깊이
there is no way to
모르겠어. 그 뭐라 그래 그거.
there is no way to refuse the debate being offered. So they had this debate between Mahayana and Kamlashila.
논쟁을 피할 방법이 없잖아. 또 논쟁하는 게 옳고. 그 까밀라 신라하고 마하야나 스님하고 두 분이 논쟁을 한 거야.
A lot of people gather in the area, and
지금도 있습니다, 이들이.
also people, all the scholars from Tibet and also China, they gathered, and after 3 days of debate, Mahayana, the Venerable Mahayana said, accepted his defeat.
논쟁을 벌였는데 마하야나 스님이 3일 만에 일어서서 자기 생각이 잘못됐을 것 같다.
That's also because Chinese Buddhists, Chinese people, they interpreted a lot of Buddhism in their own way, and that's why it seems they lost the debate. But Tibetans, they learned it directly from India. That's why they were able to win the debate.
인도 그 부처님 전통 그대로 하고 있었고, 그래서 두 분의 논쟁 가운데 핵심적인 무념에 관한 논쟁이었는데, 무념을
when we say the absence of thought, Mahayana, Venerable Mahayana thought it was actually the literally absence of thought. But when Kamlashila asked, if you do not have a thought, then who brings the thought to the road to enlightenment? If you say absence of thought is enlightenment, then who the need or the wish to gain enlightenment, or the need or the wish to make the bodhisattva, who causes the thought? And it's not only this debate, but there were quite a lot of other debates, and Venerable Mahayana, he lost the debate.
그래서 이거는 이제 무념이라는 것은 그런 거 아니거든요. 그래서 이제 거기서 완전히 이제 이 말고도 여러 가지 논쟁이 있었는데 마하야나 스님이 그때 완전히 패했어요. 그리고 논쟁에서 패하면 끝이거든요.
When the debate was going on, the king who was sitting there, he won it totally because if he asked the Chinese Buddhism to get out of Tibet, that's all that causes political conflict. But even before the king asked him to leave Tibet, the Chinese Buddhism left Tibet on its own after the defeat. And after that, they had
뒤쪽을 보고 나가는 소리 하지 말고 부끄러워서 다 나가버렸어.
they invited Gamlashila as a national teacher, and the Tibetan flourished. The Buddhism flourished in Tibet.
까밀라실라를 갖다 국사로 모시고서 그 티베트 전역에 불법을 갖다 까밀라실라에게
You may well ask the role of Padmasambhava and other teachers, but they were not able to do this kind of detailed work. But in Tibet, there is something called
이 어른들은 가가지고 요런 작업은 못했어요. 글을 많이 쓰긴 했지만도 요런 작업을 못하고 구체적으로 이렇게 하지는 못하고 바드마삼바바는 뭔 작업을 했느냐? 티베트에 벤교라는 게 있었어요. 우리나라도 2차돈 순교 아시죠, 그죠? 그게 이제 천경님이라는 신라 때
even in Korea, this Ichadon, he tried to build a monastery in an area where they prayed to God.
그 곳이 천경님이에요. 그 천경님 거기에다가 절을 지으려고 이제 했단 말이에요. 그 2차돈.
And king tried to kill him because he was trying to build a monastery there. So Ichadon made a deal with him. If you kill me and if a red blood comes out of my neck, then maybe Buddhism has no value. But if white blood comes out of my throat, then you need to obey Buddhism. And when the king killed him, white blood came out of his neck, and all the people who were against each other, they didn't know what to say, and then the Buddhism started to flourish in Shinla. But Padmasambhava, when he went to Tibet, there was something called Ven. Von had a serious faith in God. But Padmasambhava was able to overrule all of them with supernatural power. And everyone from Buddhist religion, they tried to fight against Padmasambhava through supernatural power, but they lost. So they asked king if they could stay in small area. They would obey Buddhism, but they would also try to live in a small area without influence. Padmasambhava gave this kind of benefit to Tibet, and Gamlashila was able to spread Buddhism on its own to Tibetans. So the reason why Tibet has a lot of teachers who are bright and who are very true to Buddhism, that's the reason why Tibetans have a lot of those great teachers. If Gamlashila is alive somewhere around this world, then I want to offer him some food.
하여튼 까밀라 신라는 살아 계시면 뭐 어디 있으면 나 밥 한 끼 사줘야 돼. 내가 아주 배가 고프도록 설명을 했어.
Acharya Gamlashila wrote this Abhidhamma in order to completely remove their wrong thoughts and contradictions.
개념에 대한 모순을 확실히 제거하기에 이 논설을 지었습니다. 그러니까
Because it's impossible to point out all the errors of Chinese Buddhism.
중국에서
Instead,
지어진 논서들이
if you're able to lay out all the proper things,
것이 많다라는 것을 갖다가 하나하나 지적을
like for example, if you bring out all fake diamonds all over, but if you bring just one true diamond, then it makes every other fake diamonds false. No matter how much makeup you put on and come here, if you just bring one idol here, then you all look different.
진짜를 하나만 갖다 놓으면 나머지가 전부 다 가짜가 돼. 그죠?
If we bring just one very famous idol here, you'll be able to find out why are we so old, why do we have so many gray hairs. You'll be able to realize.
그죠? 예?
If you read this book written by Kamlashila, then it causes the barometer it causes the basis for you to understand what is true and what is false.
이 저술 까멜라 신라의 저술만 딱 보면
Of course, there will be objections.
잘못됐구나. 기준점을 이게
Opposite ways too. Amongst the all very pretty girls, and if you just bring one ugly person, then she will look further more ugly.
반대도 있겠지.
Here, what we have to concentrate on is the fact that these great teachers at the time, they had a very outstanding literary achievement and also rules. Even at the time of their debate, they used a very refined words. Okay, think about this debate. Even when you're having debate, if you just argue about this and that in every way, then the watchers might have doubts. But while the debate, if the debate is done in a very ideal way, and if everything is spoken in a very proper way, then everyone will be awestruck. So Mahayan was very he accepted his total defeat. There are about 6 to 7 volumes of books written about this great debate. I wasn't able to read it fully, but I only saw some parts of it. That also means they didn't make the opponent as the as a point of personal criticism. So that means they did not say these kind of things, but it's only me who only say these kind of things. They were very gentle, and they were very gentle. Even when he had a debate with them, just as a Buddha did, he spoke to them in a very clear and also very concrete notion, and also he also provide them ideas based on these practices. And one of my favorite line is never have a blind faith. So let's say, for example, I said, "Where are you sick? What did you eat?" But those who listen to me carefully will not just go and eat whatever I tell them to eat. You know, that's right. That's just a reference.
그렇게 내가 했다고 칩시다. 근데 이제 내 얘기를 잘 들었던 사람들은 절대 진옥 스님이 뭐라 그랬다고 가서 볼짝볼짝 마시고 안 있습니다. 그래야 맞죠? 그래 참고 사항이지.
That's why in Buddhism we divide suttas into 12 different volumes, and we say this sutta is directly to the relation or to the meditation or to the and also different ideas of Buddhist ideologies.
바로 얘기한 거야.
When you talk about evil, you need to talk about the good.
이거는 인연을 얘기한 거야.
Also, when you are talking about the virtue, if you do not talk about evil, it does not provide any basis for the conversation. If you do not talk about brightness while you are talking about darkness, brightness cannot be explained.
선을 얘기해야 되겠죠, 그죠? 근데 선을
If you want to talk about beautiful person, then you need to talk about ugliness too. And if you want to talk about aging, then you also have to bring out the young person.
밝음을 얘기하려면 어둠을 얘기해야 돼. 미인을 얘기하려고 그러면 꼭 못생긴 걸 들어야 돼요. 그렇잖아요, 그죠?
If most of the people, if the people of the same age are all sitting together, they still think they are in high school. Even when they have grandchildren, they act like high school children.
많은 사람들만 있으면 늙었는지 젊었는지를 잘 몰라. 그래서 동창들 모아놓으면 자기네들 지금 여고생인 줄 알아. 네 밥 먹나? 뭐라? 막 애가
So the reason why we talk about these examples, or the reason why we bring out examples to talk about this darkness or brightness,
그러니까 대법을 들어서 얘기하는 것은 우리가 이 악을 없애려 그러면 선을 들어서 선을 해라, 선을 행하라.
the religion like Hinduism, when they say do not do evil but only do goodness, that's also a problem. And since we do only good things, the God will protect us. This way, they became the most evil person in the world. Do you understand what I mean? Even at home, if your husband is very good to his mother or his father, then what happens to the wife? The wife becomes very evil person.
무슨 얘기인지 알겠어요?
If the husband is really good to his parents, then the wife can never be a good person. And he will complain, or he will scold his wife, why are you acting like that to my parents?
아주 그냥 효부상 절대 못 받아요.
Because you do not obey my parents, I want to divorce you. They say these kind of things.
그러면서 뭐라 그러면 니는 왜 우리 엄마한테 그러냐고 그런다고.
Then what do we have to do?
그러면 자기 부인한테는 철저한 폭력을 행사하게 돼 있어.
Husband should act a little evil beside, so that the wife can do good things to their parents. Even when you're giving money, you should make sure that the wife gives the money. But those bad ones, they say I asked them to give money. You know, those kind of people, you should put a bandage on their mouth.
돈을 줄 때도 용돈을 줄 때 부인이 주게끔 해.
When he said my daughter-in-law gave some pocket money, they should say there's no money at home. She prepared money for you. Then the mother will think such a horrendous son, and she will also think, oh, my daughter-in-law doesn't have money. She still spares some money for me. This should be the proper way, but instead they take the money to their parents and say, my wife will not even give you pocket money, so I'm giving you pocket money secretly. And while doing that, they think they have done a great act and they are very good to their parents.
돈도 안 줄 겁니다. 내가 준다고 집에 몰래 사가지고 살짝 주고 가고
So in that way, they say, because I believe in God, I'm very humble or very good person, and because of that, you will go to hell. This kind of things or this kind of sayings. And this is reason why we talk about evil and the good at the same time.
상대법을 얘기할 때는 상대법에 머물러면 안 돼. 무슨 얘기 알겠지?
Even when you are performing a virtuous act, you should drop the thought that you are a nice person. Then only you will become the actual good person, and your wife will also become a good person. But even that, the wife should be able to understand this. But if wife is not able to understand that, it becomes more complicated. When the husband makes so much effort, then the wife should try to say good things about the husband. But when the mother-in-law says, "Did you bring money?" She says, "Yes, I brought the money," without any discussion. You shouldn't say something like that. She should say something like, "No. My husband said if I do not give money, then he will be very upset. That's why I brought it." Then the mother will start thinking, is it from my son or from the daughter-in-law? That causes a balance between the two.
안 갖다 주면 그냥 꿀밤을 한 대 줍고 갖다 서 얼른 갖다 주는데 애기 아주 큰 겁니다. 그럼 엄마는 이제 아범이 했나, 며느리가 했나. 그러면 양쪽 다 균형이 잡힐 거예요.
So Buddha has taught this.
그렇게 되겠죠? 양쪽 다 균형이 딱 잡혀. 그게 이제 사실상 중도라. 낮은 차원의 중도란 말이에요.
This relative method, and you should not take these comparisons as they are. So when you are talking about the sutta, you should be able to know what is absolute and what is relative and what is it on its own. Because there are 12 different classifications, you do not misunderstand in Buddhism. So when Dosunbupsa's mother had a son, she did not have a husband, but and also since she was single, she could have been killed, but instead, because a spinster had a baby,
근데 약혼자라도 있으면 괜찮은데 약혼자가 누군지도 없어. 그러니 맞아 죽게 생겼잖아. 그래가지고
because the spinster had a baby, the parents of the mother just brought the kid to and left it on a rock for it to die, but the pigeons came and protected the baby. And later, when Dosunbapsa became a monk, they wrote on his tombstone, since they cannot write, because our teacher was born from a single mother, because they cannot write that. They couldn't write that because my teacher's mother had an affair and left him on a rock to die. And so since he was an orphan, he became a monk. They could not write that. Instead, they wrote, since the mother's surname was Choi, he also followed the name Choi. So instead they wrote, my mother went to valley to do laundry, and there was a cucumber coming down. There was a cucumber floating down, so she ate the cucumber and became pregnant. And those people, they should not say, who are not able to get pregnant, you didn't eat cucumber. So even in Bible, they write the snake is very evil. So when they say the evil, when they say the snake is an evil and they should kill all the snakes, no, this kind of thing is very relative. You should have your own clear consciousness. If you say that you are prehistoric people, then it's acceptable, but it's not even prehistoric times. What century is it now? It's 21st century.
그걸 믿어라 그러면 뭐 구석기 시대 사람이라 그러면 뭐 그런가 보다 하고 그렇게 하겠지만 지금 구석기도 아니고 신석기도 아니고 청동기도 아니고
In 21st century, if you say you're pregnant because you ate a cucumber,
백악기도 아니고 예? 아 21세기라니까
you know, even in Buddhism, there are a lot of things like that.
21세기에 지금 오이를 먹고 아기를 가졌다고 하면 참 진짜
So when they say, Dosung says name is Choi, starts from Choi, they thought maybe they got married to the same surname. So for that they removed the surname. So you should not be fooled by different or diverse words being used. But you should find out for what it has been spoken, with what purpose. I don't know, maybe something like this could be possible. Maybe the birth dream was the dream of the cucumber. This could be true, but it's not so. But they say she really ate cucumber and became pregnant. Before it was in a documentary, the Catholic documentary. They have this telescope in Rome. They have put that telescope in order to find the evidence that this universe was made by a god. So they want to see the evidence.
이 우주가 하느님이 창조했다는 증거를 찾기 위해서 이게 지금 이거 보고 앉았다는 거야.
Even if he makes a really big telescope and put it out there, and even if he looks at it for thousands of years, he will not be able to find the evidence. It's same like finding evidence that after eating a cucumber you became pregnant. You try to look for evidence, but you are not able to do so. So instead, it's better to say, maybe it's better to understand, or more accurate to understand that he was born from a single mother.
그냥 차라리 도성국사가 사생하다 그런 게 낫겠죠? 훨씬 그게 빠르잖아.
Where are we?
더 정확하고. 아이고 참.
Just like the history shows, this precious Abhidhamma has a special relation with the Tibet. The writer Kamlashila has provided so much virtue in Tibet. It cannot be expressed in words. This kind of virtue is great. It cannot be thanked enough. How can you compare it to thousands of rice being spread? It has provided us a special or more accurate way to attain our happiness. So what is rice or what is precious gems here to compare to? But the history
행복을 줄 수 있는
But history says that Tibetans were not able to understand how grateful the gratitude of it.
금이 뭐고
I wonder if there will be some people. I wonder if there were some people who will be grateful to me after my death. Maybe they only complain that I ask every day to ask them to study.
썼다고 전합니다.
If we don't study, he always scolded us, and it seems Buddha did the same.
그 양반 맨날
Everyone was happy when Buddha died, so a lot of people got scolded.
아이고 맨날 공부하라고 그냥 공부 안 하면 그냥 날벼락을 치고 말이야. 예? 내가 아유 부처님도 그러셨대. 부처님 돌아가셨다 그러니까 아유 살았다 잘 돌아가셨다.
It seemed Tibetans they did not know how much good Kamlashila did for Tibet, but after some time they realized.
아마 진옥 스님 죽었다 그러면 이 까멜레시라도 가서
Yeah, so
티벳 사람들은 멍했는가? 지나놓고 보니까 이 양반이 보통 우리한테 큰 일을 한 게 아니구나.
it's same when you are close to them, you're not able to understand how the importance of them. It's almost like when your husband is here troubling you, you feel he's only being cumbersome, but when he dies, you will know how important he was to you.
그렇게 서운해 할 거예요, 그죠? 예? 안 서운할까? 예? 아, 걔는 꼬리를 쳐서 인가 그러지. 영감은 그와 함께 객질러가지고.
But there were also some people, unlike you, they only complain after the husband's death. There were a few incidents. If you look at it from other direction, Tibetans,
근데 영감 죽은데
Tibetans, although Buddhism started in Tibet, there were also problems with evils. So in order to control this, Padmasambhava came to Tibet.
다른 각도에서 보면 티베트인들이 법의 꽃을 피웠지만 마귀의 무리도 역시 극성이야.
So the funny thing is, the Atisha and Padmasambhava, when they flourished Buddhism in Tibet,
그러니까
it was almost similar to Korea.
이제 웃기는 게 아마도 여기에 그 아티샤, 까멜라 신라 이분들이 법을 이렇게 펴고 나니까 어떤 상황이 벌어졌냐면 또 우리나라 실정하고 비슷했다. 지금 하여튼 구들은
They always acted as if everything was that of Buddhism. So even the pencil was that of Buddhism, and whatever they say was something related to Buddhism.
부처님 모시는 것 같다. 그래야 뭐 하여튼 풍선 달아나도 부처님이고 뭐 전부 다 또 그 점집 이름이 무슨 보살집. 그죠?
Yesterday there was a public poll, and
뭐 하여튼 무슨
네.
이름 붙여놓고,
they had opinion poll, and they also had a name called Mudangpa, which is Mudang actually is shaman in Korean. So I thought there were more number of shamanism in Korean than Buddhism.
무당파 몇 퍼센트고? 무당파가 아니면은 무당파가
So in Tibet,
우리나라 불교보다 무당파가 많구나.
when Buddhism flourished in Tibet, a lot of people they tried to earn money using Buddhism.
그러니까 당파가 없는 사람들 그렇게 하는 게 아니라
Every other religion, including Bon, they also had Buddha.
무당들이 정치 결사체를 만들었나? 그러니까 티베트 안에 이제 뭐가 있냐면 불법이 막 이제 전달돼지니까 그게 굉장히 좋으니까 이제 뭐라 하냐면
So at the time, Padmasambhava came to Tibet and he controlled all the problems.
벤교도
Guru Rinpoche controlled all evil powers, and he made Tibet environment into a peaceful environment with the Buddhist law.
무슨 놈은 이게 자꾸 이게 마구니도 귀신도 또 성해졌나? 그래서 이제 빠져만 산가 봐.
So Guru Rinpoche was able to control all these supernatural powers of one religion. There was some person who
구루 림포체는 모든 마귀의 힘을 제압하고 티벳에 가피받은 평화로운
who flew on the sky and beat drums, and Padmasambhava went up to the mountain and he came down from the mountain flying, hitting the drums.
하루아침에 박살을 내버려. 어떤 사람은 공중에 떠올라서
But there were still people who said wrong things. At the time,
신동력이 있으니까
even the king could not listen or could not listen to everything that Guru Rinpoche wanted. You can find out more about these if you look at Tibetan Buddhist history.
별게 다 있었대.
Listen to this lesson from here, and all this is explanation about the teaching, and also the background why this book was written, and also the history of teachers